They told you the truth was in the Bible. But what if the most dangerous wisdom was ripped out of it? Long before the official church built its thrones and crowned itself gatekeeper of salvation, early Christians followed a forbidden path, one illuminated by a sacred force they called Sophia. And buried in lost scriptures lies a story so transformative it threatened to unravel the entire foundation of organized religion. This is the Forbidden Book of Sophia. Not a dusty manuscript locked in a forgotten vault, but a living wisdom encoded in texts the early Christians revered before the church took over. It spoke of a divine feminine, a cosmic intelligence that moved through all things, and of a secret the rulers of empires could never allow the masses to know: that salvation is not submission, but awakening. For centuries, the church erased Sophia's name, buried her gospels, and declared heresy what was once sacred. They feared her not because she was evil, but because she offered freedom. The wisdom she carried made every soul sovereign, every seeker a temple. It dared to teach that the spark of the divine didn't reside in holy men, but in you. So ask yourself, what if the faith you inherited was a carefully edited version of a deeper, wilder, and more ancient truth? In this video, we'll unveil what early Christians truly believed before the church claimed dominion. And when you hear it, something inside you will remember. Few people realize this, but long before institutions draped spirituality in the weight of dogma and rigid hierarchies, there existed a luminous, fluid, maternal presence known as Sophia. Not just a poetic idea tucked away in dusty scriptures, Sophia was the living, breathing embodiment of divine wisdom itself, a conscious force that still moves through the centuries and quietly touches those bold enough to seek beyond what they've been told. She was the first light, the original embrace of the cosmos, the womb of compassion and sacred intelligence. And yes, she was feminine. The name Sophia means wisdom, but in the ancient texts, especially within Gnostic writings, that word carries far more than a dictionary definition. Imagine a primordial consciousness that upon its emergence already held the knowledge of all things that ever were and would be, yet chose to venture into creation. According to the Gnostics, it was from Sophia that the spark of creative force was born, giving shape not only to the cosmos, but also to the concept of error. Because even wisdom, when it walks alone, can stumble, and this stumble would alter the course of human history in ways the world was never meant to forget. In the Gnostic cosmology, Sophia left the pleroma, the realm of divine perfection, driven by a yearning to create independently without the permission or balance of her masculine counterpart. The result was the birth of the demiurge, a lesser being who went on to shape the material world. This very world we find ourselves in. And if you've ever looked around and felt that things here seem off, unjust, or strangely disconnected, now you know why. Sophia, in this mythic act, became both the mother of matter and the mother of the soul, carrying within her the ache of separation and the eternal spark of salvation. What religious patriarchies later condemned, recast as sin, and buried under centuries of fearful theology wasn't weakness. It was a cosmic reflection of the human experience. Sophia's story isn't about moral failure, it's about the descent, the forgetting, the breaking, and the call to rise again. She mirrors precisely what every spiritual seeker endures: the fall into illusion, the hunger to remember, and the aching pull back toward the divine origin. Only she did it on a scale so vast it shook the heavens. And this is precisely why her name was erased, her gospels burned, and her voice replaced by rigid laws meant to silence the inward call. Sophia represents the sacred feminine, the principle that nurtures, reconciles, and illuminates, while the Logos, the masculine principle, gives form and structure. It's no accident this same dynamic plays out within each of us even now. Who hasn't felt torn between cold logic and gentle intuition, between doing what's expected and listening to the quiet voice of the soul. Sophia is the ancient teacher who whispers to those daring enough to look beyond the shimmering surface of appearances, inviting them into deeper waters. If you've ever felt a restless pull, a knowing presence within you that couldn't be explained by churches, commandments, or conventional beliefs, know that it has a name. And no, it's not heresy. It's Sophia, calling you back to yourself. But before you can grasp the enormity of that call, you have to uncover where she's been hidden all this time and who dared to silence her voice. Because believe it or not, the records existed, and now they are stirring once more, ready to be remembered. Long before official councils determined what humanity was allowed to read, there existed sacred texts that carried whispers of Sophia's name. Hidden in ancient libraries, buried in caves, and passed along by exiled mystics, these Gospels told a story far removed from the one we have been taught to accept. The Gospel of Philip, Pistis Sophia, the Gospel of Thomas, all spoke of an inner knowledge, not blind obedience. A salvation found within, not granted by an external throne. These texts, brimming with mysteries, have survived the ages despite the relentless efforts to erase them from history. The Gnostics believed that true awakening came not through adherence to dogma, but through gnosis, direct personal knowledge of the divine spark within. They understood that Christ and Sophia were not separate, but two intertwined aspects of the same cosmic force. Logos and wisdom, action and consciousness, masculine and feminine, united in perfect harmony. This idea was deemed dangerous by those who sought to control, for it threatened the very foundation of their power. It was heresy because it bypassed their dominion, cutting through the illusions they had carefully crafted. Imagine for a moment a world where people didn't need temples, priests, or rituals to commune with the divine, where salvation was not found in following decrees, but in remembering who they truly were. These forbidden texts dared to reveal that Christ, in his full essence, was not confined to the figure nailed to the cross, but existed as a living principle, one that resonated through Sophia, the cosmic wisdom. Sophia was the guide, the eternal light in the darkness, calling the lost souls back to their origin. She was the mother of the forgotten, a map for those trapped in the illusion of worldly appearances. The hidden truth they tried to bury is this: the fall wasn't of the flesh, but of consciousness. It wasn't our physical bodies that sinned, but our souls, forgetting their infinite nature. The real fall occurred when the soul mistook the fleeting material life for the entire story of existence. Sophia's wisdom is the stirring voice within you, when you sense that there's more to this world than meets the eye. It's the dream of stars, of ancient cities, of timeless truths, truths that were never taught but have always lived within you. That is Sophia, awakening you from the slumber of forgetfulness. The so-called forbidden books were never dangerous because of their words alone, but because of what they could ignite in the reader. These texts remind you of who you really are, not just a human in a fleeting life, but a fragment of the eternal, a star being wearing the guise of flesh. The true gospel, the authentic path to salvation, isn't ink on parchment. It's the book of your heart, the one that remembers its celestial origin, even amidst the noise and distraction of the world. It's the wisdom that Sophia has left for you to rediscover. Now let me ask you, what if these forgotten gospels weren't lost by accident? What if there was a reason behind their suppression? What if someone, somewhere, needed you to remain asleep? As we move into the next chapter, we will uncover how this ancient wisdom has been hidden in plain sight, embedded in myths, symbols, and secret societies, waiting for the right souls to awaken and claim it once more. By the 3rd and 4th centuries, something profound shifted in the spiritual history of the West. The rise of the Imperial Church wasn't about preserving truth, it was about consolidating power. A rigid, male-dominated hierarchical system was needed to align with the ambitions of Rome. And within that new order, there was no room for Sophia, a divine feminine force representing freedom, introspection, and inner wisdom was too dangerous for an empire built on control. Sophia, with her fluid maternal energy, threatened to unravel the carefully constructed hierarchy. Her presence spoke of personal gnosis, direct communion with the divine, and the sacred power of the inner world. But empires survive through obedience, not personal enlightenment. So, the wisdom of Sophia had to be erased, her name omitted from the canon, her teachings declared heretical. What remained was a shell of faith, form without spirit. The wisdom that once guided souls inward was replaced by rigid creeds and external rituals. Salvation was no longer an inward awakening, but a transaction controlled by institutions. The Divine Mother, who once cradled the cosmos in her embrace, was recast as the source of sin, as Eve in the garden, temptation personified. The feminine principle wasn't celebrated, it was demonized, reduced to a symbol of weakness and danger. Even the great mystical symbol of the Grail was stripped of its true meaning. Far from being a mere chalice or relic, the Grail was the vessel of divine wisdom, Sophia herself, hidden in allegory. It wasn't something to be found in stone temples, but within the human soul. To reveal that was to reveal that every man and woman carried the sacred within them, making mediators and institutions obsolete. The suppression of Sophia was never about theology, it was about power. If people realized the sacred feminine lived within them, they would no longer bow to thrones of gold or dogmas written in fear. They would become sovereign beings, walking temples, impossible to control. And so, stories were rewritten, gospels burned, and myths twisted, but the truth, like a flame in the dark, never died. Now consider this. What if the Grail you've heard about in legends is a metaphor for your own forgotten wisdom? What if Sophia still waits within you, not in books or relics, but in that quiet voice urging you to remember who you are? In the next chapter, we'll trace how her hidden wisdom was passed through secret orders, symbols, and encoded messages that defied the centuries. Something ancient is stirring beneath the surface of our modern world. In the age of abandoned temples and disillusioned dogmas, a quiet but undeniable voice is calling seekers back to what was lost. The surge of non-dogmatic spirituality today isn't a trend. It's the echo of Sophia's call. Every time you feel that truth lies beyond words, that the divine pulses in your heart rather than in rules, you're hearing her voice. She returns not as a figure in a dusty manuscript, but as a living presence, moving through intuition, inspiration, and sacred balance. Sophia is the subtle force behind every moment, when reason and feeling align, when heaven and earth, masculine and feminine, meet in perfect harmony within you. Her return marks not an external event, but an inward awakening that millions feel without fully understanding. Sophia invites us to heal the inner split that has kept us fragmented for lifetimes. The disconnection between spirit and matter, head and heart, has made us forget who we truly are. But when you remember, even for a moment, that light still lives within you, unbroken and eternal, you become part of her return. Every act of introspection, every sacred question you dare to ask, restores a piece of the cosmic order. This is why ancient wisdom traditions spoke of the sacred marriage, the reunion of the lost parts of the soul. Sophia moves through these rituals and forgotten symbols, reminding us that salvation was never about escaping the world, but reclaiming the wholeness hidden within it. She is not just a mythic figure, she's the eternal pattern of balance and wisdom that humanity must rediscover to heal. Every awakened soul becomes a rewritten page of the forbidden book. Each person who reclaims their divine spark tears a hole in the fabric of illusion the demiurge built. Sophia's wisdom is no longer buried in caves or guarded by secret orders. It lives in your questions, your longings, your defiance of shallow answers. And in that, you are part of her great return. So I ask you, how often do you feel a silent, unexplainable pull towards something ancient, something sacred that no one taught you? That is the voice of Sophia. And in our final chapter, we'll explore how her wisdom survives, encoded in myths, symbols, and prophecies, waiting for you to read between the lines. Sophia's story was never just a myth. It was a message meant for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. She teaches us that error isn't failure, it's initiation. Every fall, every mistake, every dark night of the soul is a necessary descent before wisdom rises. The wisdom of Sophia whispers that enlightenment isn't about flawless living, but about learning through experience, remembering through forgetting. She reminds us that salvation isn't about escaping this world, but remembering who you are while living inside it. The goal isn't to abandon the material, but to sanctify it through conscious presence. Every heartbeat, every moment of stillness, every choice made in awareness turns the mundane into sacred ground. Sophia's path isn't above life, it's within life. Her ancient wisdom reveals that the sacred doesn't belong to towering temples or distant heavens. It blooms in the quiet spaces of the soul, in the silence between thoughts, in the ache you feel when beauty breaks your heart. The place where the divine resides has always been inside you, not in doctrines, not in relics, but in the eternal flame that refuses to go out, no matter how many times the world tries to smother it. Sophia teaches that the feminine isn't opposition to the divine. It is the womb of the universe itself. Creation was never born from dominance, but from balance, from the sacred union of masculine force and feminine wisdom. To rediscover Sophia is to remember the lost half of your own soul, to integrate the wisdom you were taught to fear, and to become whole again. And perhaps, just perhaps, what the church worked so hard to erase was the clearest, purest spark of divine truth humanity ever received. A truth that didn't need intermediaries or institutions. A truth that dared to tell you, you were never separate from the source. You only forgot. Sophia's return isn't coming. It's happening now, in you. So I'll leave you with this. When was the last time you sat in silence and asked yourself, who was I before the world told me who to be? In that question lives Sophia. In that remembering lies your liberation. The forbidden book of Sophia was never just ink on parchment. It was the living memory of a wisdom the world wasn't ready to face. Early Christians believed in a path of direct inner knowing, a gnosis that bypassed thrones, temples, and decrees. They followed Sophia, the sacred embodiment of divine wisdom, before the church took over and turned awakening into obedience. What you've discovered tonight is more than history. It's a mirror. The story of Sophia isn't locked in ancient scrolls or lost gospels. It's written inside you. Every time you question, every time you feel there's more beneath the surface of what you've been told, you are answering her call. The forbidden truth they tried to bury is that the sacred was never outside of you. It was always yours. Reclaiming Sophia means remembering what they wanted you to forget, that salvation isn't escape, but remembrance, that the divine doesn't belong to empires or hierarchies, but blooms in silence, intuition, and courage. The true church was never a building. It was the awakened human heart. So I ask you, seeker of hidden truths, which of these revelations stirred something ancient within you? Share it in the comments. Let's turn this space into a sanctuary for those who remember. And if this message spoke to you, subscribe and stay close. because the veil is thinning and more forbidden chapters are about to be revealed.
To understand more about subjects related to cosmic rays, esotericism, theosophy and advanced spirituality, and access knowledge little known by the general public, access the link in the first pinned comment and discover the e-book, What Are Cosmic Rays, written by Bathajal.